Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. The Miami Dolphins find themselves at a crossroads during this NFL offseason. Once viewed as a team on the rise, the current landscape feels markedly different. Injuries, inconsistent performances, and underwhelming postseason progress have cast doubts on their short-term ambitions. As a result, speculation is intensifying about whether Miami will begin offloading high-profile, high-salary players to reshape their roster, plan for the future, and create salary cap flexibility. Among those players, Tyreek Hill, the electric but polarizing wide receiver with a $90 million contract, has entered the spotlight. And now, a bold idea is gaining traction. Tyreek Hill in a Dallas Cowboys uniform. The buzz began to build after the Dallas Cowboys exited the NFL draft without selecting a top-tier wide receiver to support their offensive core. With CeeDee Lamb already on the roster and Dak Prescott needing a dynamic playmaker to push the passing game over the edge, the omission was glaring. It didn't take long for analysts to look toward trade possibilities, and one of the most explosive names in football soon emerged: Tyreek Hill. Brian Martin, a contributor for SB Nation, floated the idea of Miami dealing Hill to Dallas. His proposal wasn't just speculative. It was grounded in ongoing rumors that have lingered throughout the offseason. According to Martin, there's been consistent chatter about the possibility of Hill being traded, even if nothing concrete has materialized. He wrote that while the idea of pairing Hill with Lamb in Dallas is enticing, the price, both in draft capital and salary obligations, would be steep. Still, as he rightly pointed out, with Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, no move should ever be ruled out entirely. Jones has a long history of swinging for the fences when it comes to star talent, and Hill's resume is among the most impressive in the league. Though Tyreek Hill didn't have a record-breaking season in 2024, his numbers were far from pedestrian. Despite an inconsistent Dolphins offense and ongoing injury issues for quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, Hill still managed to rack up 959 receiving yards and find the end zone 6 times. These are respectable figures by most standards. But for Hill, especially after a staggering 2023 campaign in which he amassed 1,509 receiving yards and scored 13 touchdowns, the dip in production was noticeable. Miami had every reason to hope that Hill would replicate or even exceed his previous heights. But the reality was that the team's offensive unit struggled to find rhythm and consistency. The root of that struggle, to a large extent, stemmed from the quarterback position. Tua Tagovailoa once again battled injuries, leaving the Dolphins with instability under center. Without his starting quarterback healthy for a full season, Hill's ability to dominate games was naturally curtailed. Even with his elite speed, route running, and yards after catch abilities, Hill isn't immune to the challenges of a sputtering offense. Still, the fact that he neared 1,000 yards and scored half a dozen touchdowns speaks to just how talented and impactful he can be, even when everything around him is far from ideal. This is exactly why the idea of Tyreek Hill joining the Dallas Cowboys is so tantalizing. In Dallas, Hill wouldn't be forced to carry the offense on his own. He would join forces with CeeDee Lamb, who has firmly established himself as one of the NFL's best receivers. Together, they could form one of the most dangerous wide receiver duos in recent memory. Their styles are different but complementary. Lamb with his precise routes and strong hands, Hill with his game-breaking speed and unmatched agility. Defenses would struggle to key in on one without being burned by the other. And with Dak Prescott at quarterback, a player who, while not without his critics, has proven himself capable of delivering when supported by elite talent, the Cowboys offense could reach heights it hasn't seen since the days of peak Dez Bryant or even the triplets era of the 1990s. Financially, of course, the trade would be complicated. Tyreek Hill's contract is massive, and the Cowboys would need to maneuver carefully under the salary cap to accommodate him. Acquiring Hill would not just mean giving up valuable draft picks, likely a first rounder or more, but also taking on the financial weight of a superstar deal. That's a tough ask for any front office, especially one that has other roster needs to address. But again, Jerry Jones has never shied away from bold moves if he believes the return justifies the risk. He's brought in flashy stars before, some of whom paid off and others who fizzled. Still, the allure of a player like Hill might prove too tempting, particularly in a year when expectations in Dallas remain sky high, but questions persist about whether the team has enough offensive firepower to make a serious postseason push. From Miami's perspective, a trade involving Hill might be difficult emotionally but practical financially. Moving on from such a high-profile player would be a clear signal that the team is resetting, if not outright rebuilding. It could allow them to shed salary, accumulate draft capital, and reallocate resources toward areas of greater need. The Dolphins, after all, have other contracts to consider and will soon face critical decisions on players like Tua Tagovailoa. The window to compete may be closing faster than expected, and sometimes the most responsible move is the hardest one to make. By trading Hill, the Dolphins could embrace a long-term strategy rather than chasing diminishing short-term returns. It's also worth considering Tyreek Hill's own motivations. A move to Dallas would put him squarely in the national spotlight, playing for one of the most visible franchises in sports. He would be back in the NFC facing a different slate of opponents and media scrutiny, but also stepping into an environment where he could immediately contend. For a player of Hill's pedigree, someone who already has a Super Bowl ring and is eyeing a Hall of Fame resume, the chance to shine on a bigger stage could be appealing. In Dallas, his highlights would lead every sports broadcast, and his performances would define narratives week after week. And make no mistake, Tyreek Hill still has game-changing ability. Even in what many consider a down year, he proved he can stretch defenses, force double coverages, and create separation better than almost any receiver in the league. With a healthy quarterback and a more stable offensive system, there's every reason to believe Hill could return to his previous All-Pro form. If that resurgence were to happen in a Cowboys jersey, the NFL landscape would take notice, and defenses around the league would tremble. Ultimately, while Brian Martin and others see this trade as unlikely, and it is, the fact that it's even being discussed is revealing. It highlights Miami's uncertain direction, Dallas's urgency to win now, and Hill's undeniable value. If both teams decide to shake things up in pursuit of their respective goals, don't be surprised if a headline-grabbing blockbuster comes to fruition, because in the NFL, where fortunes can turn in a single offseason, nothing, not even trading, a $90 million superstar is off the table. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your take on the Fins this week? There's something different in the air around the Miami Dolphins this offseason. For a team that has steadily been climbing the ranks of relevance in the NFL, things should feel optimistic, maybe even electric. After all, Miami boasts one of the league's most exciting offenses, a young and creative head coach in Mike McDaniel, and a roster filled with talent on both sides of the ball. But beneath the surface, behind the flashy highlights and sharp play designs, a quieter, more delicate story seems to be unfolding. It's not about a player trade or a front office dispute. It's about the man at the center of it all. Rumors have begun to swirl that Mike McDaniel is going through a complicated, possibly painful moment in his personal life. And while nothing has been confirmed publicly, the impact of such struggles can be deeply felt in subtle but significant ways. Mike McDaniel has always been seen as a different kind of head coach. From his very first press conference, he broke the mold. He was funny, self-deprecating, deeply analytical, and unapologetically authentic. Fans embraced him for who he was. An Ivy League mind with a deep understanding of football and a heart that seemed just as big. His ability to connect with players on a human level, to speak their language and earn their trust became one of his most defining traits. But lately, those close to the team have noticed a shift. The same spark that made McDaniel a media darling and locker room favorite appears dimmed. His usually energetic demeanor during press conferences seems more subdued. The jokes come less often. The smiles, while still there, don't linger quite as long. Some inside sources speaking under condition of anonymity have hinted that McDaniel may be facing personal issues unrelated to football. While the exact nature of these issues remains unclear, the impact is becoming harder to ignore. Emotional fatigue, stress, and private battles have a way of seeping into professional life, even for the most disciplined individuals. In a role as demanding as head coach of an NFL team, where every decision is scrutinized and every game carries weight, personal turmoil can create ripples that affect everything from team morale to long-term planning. It's worth remembering that McDaniel's journey to becoming a head coach was anything but smooth. He has openly discussed his past battles with alcohol addiction, his time away from the NFL, and the long road of recovery that led him back to the league. That level of transparency only made fans respect him more. He's not a man afraid of vulnerability. He's a man who understands that leadership comes not from perfection, but from honesty, resilience, and connection. So when signs start to appear that something may be off, it's natural for people to be concerned, not just about what it means for the Dolphins, but about the well-being of the man himself. Football, for all its intensity and spectacle, is ultimately a game played and coached by humans. Coaches like McDaniel are under immense pressure not just to win, but to lead, to inspire, to hold together a locker room full of personalities, dreams, and egos. Add to that the emotional weight of whatever might be happening in his private world, and the challenge becomes even greater. This isn't about criticizing decisions on fourth down or debating play calling tendencies. This is about recognizing that even the most brilliant minds in a sport can be pulled down by struggles that the public may never fully see. The Dolphins' offseason has also had its fair share of football-related turbulence. From contract discussions with key players to speculation about the team's long-term direction, there have been plenty of headlines. But the idea that McDaniel could be wrestling with something deeper adds a layer of complexity. Leadership is often romanticized as a position of strength and certainty. But true leadership also means having the courage to navigate storms, both internal and external. For players, a coach's emotional tone sets the atmosphere in the building. If McDaniel is indeed going through something difficult, the players are likely to feel it. They might not talk about it openly, but they'll notice the subtle shifts, the change in body language, the silence where encouragement once lived, the hesitation in eyes that once brimmed with confidence. And while a team can rally around a struggling coach, offering support and solidarity, there's also the risk that the emotional strain could wear down the cohesion that makes great teams special. It's unclear whether this rumored difficult moment will pass quietly or evolve into something more visible. The NFL isn't known for being gentle, especially with its head coaches. The job consumes everything: time, energy, relationships, health. And when personal issues begin to surface, there's rarely space to breathe. The expectations don't lessen. The spotlight doesn't dim. But that's precisely why it's so important for these human stories to be acknowledged. Mike McDaniel isn't just a play caller or a strategist. He's a father, a husband, a man with a history, with hopes, with struggles just like anyone else. For Dolphins fans, this news, still unconfirmed, still vague, will likely come with a mix of concern and uncertainty. What does it mean for the upcoming season? Will McDaniel be able to continue steering the ship with the same sharp focus and innovation? Should the front office step in to offer more support, or is this something he needs to work through on his own terms? These are hard questions, and the answers may never be made public, but what's certain is this: behind the headset, behind the game plans and media appearances is a human being who may be carrying a heavy burden right now. In the weeks to come, we may learn more, or we may not. The NFL is not known for its transparency around personal struggles, especially when they involve high-profile figures. But regardless of what emerges, it's a reminder that the people we watch every Sunday, the ones who captivate us with their tactical brilliance and sideline energy, are not immune to life's darker turns. Mike McDaniel has already shown incredible strength in his career. He's overcome adversity, rebuilt his reputation, and inspired countless fans with his intelligence and heart. If he is now facing another mountain, we can only hope he receives the support he needs from the Dolphins organization, from those closest to him, and from a football community that has learned to respect him, not just for what he does, but for who he is. Until we know more, one thing remains clear. Behind every play call, every press conference, every moment of NFL theater, there are real lives unfolding. And sometimes the most important victories happen far from the field. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up.